Okay, got it. So New Yorkers for Mental Health Alternatives is an advocacy group that is working to allow personal use of various psychedelic substances. And right now we're focusing on psilocybin. And we just had an exciting meeting today. Assembly member Scott Bendette came in and sat with us for a good half hour or so and talked different strategies for next year, because if you don't know, the New York legislative cycle has already ended for the season. And now the next few months, we're going to be working with modifying some of the language that we definitely feel should be in the next cycle, in the next bill.
Working on recommendations.
Working on recommendations, yeah, yep. And then, yeah, just figuring out what our next steps are and how we can guarantee an equitable access system for people in the future. So yeah, we're hoping to really make moves. So last year, last legislative cycle, we got a lot of people on board that weren't on board in 2022, and hopefully 2024 we'll see some better news around it. And I know there's a lot of news at the federal level, and so things might change at that level as well, which I think will help with New York's efforts. Are there any other announcements, general announcements that we should cover, Corinne, do you think?
No, I was just going to mention the discs for sale, because we're doing a review.
Oh, sure. Go grab one.
I think they're available online now. You can send over
on eBay. Okay. Yes, the New York Psilocybin Action Committee mushroom putters for disc golf from the Mycelium Open in October of 2022. Wow, that was 2022. Right? Oh my gosh. Yeah. And Collar City Mushrooms, and as a result, New Yorkers for Mental Health Alternatives and the New York Psilocybin Action Committee will have a table at Farming Man. So if anyone is local to the capital region, we are going to be at Indian Ladder Farms Cidery and Brewery, talking about our advocacy efforts and hopefully getting some more signatures for the change.org petition, which is now almost at 1,000. I think we're at 993 signatures last I checked. So, you know, we definitely.
When is that?
That's Saturday, July 15th. Yeah, yep. I think tickets are only like $40 too, so it should be pretty fun. Yeah, there's I think 6 bands playing. They have dozens of breweries that are going to be there, some ciders, obviously, and food and some other fun things. So it's going to be pretty good. Yep. So I guess we're going to move right into committee reports. So some finance updates for the New Yorkers for Mental Health Alternatives. Elliott is here in the house, and Elliott is our new official treasurer for the board. And he and I are going to sit down afterwards. And Corinne, obviously, if you can hang out, we're going to hash out what we need to do to move forward. And I know, Robert, you did send that letter in for the 990. Is that correct?
I have to print it out yet. My printer died, but
no.
It's not a complicated thing. It's just a letter, just, basically stating, there's an error, clerical error, and this is the correct name, please change it. And hopefully, it's that simple, and the IRS does not get more involved, but, it seems like it should be.
Fantastic. So financially, I feel like within the next month or so, we'll really be able to more publicly announce our goals and fundraising pushes. So that was one of the things that organizationally there was a few hiccups with the organization that we adopted, and we're now getting those ironed out, and we're just about ready to really get a little bit more public with our efforts. I don't see Kevin or Jana on this string. Well, we had a legislative meeting yesterday, and Allison Hoots was able to join. She's a lawyer working in the psychedelic space, and she is making a lot of recommendations. She's met with a myriad of folks and has nailed down some language changes that we'd like for the bills going forward. And really, it's all about dialing in fewer partners at the legal level in order to streamline the bill to get it passed better, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people have a lot of views about what the New York legislation should look like, particularly because no state has outright legalized psilocybin. And so we're at this place where people are like, do you want to follow the Oregon model? Do you want to do your own model? Do you want to go further? And in order to cut down on the number of people that are voicing those concerns into lawmakers' offices, Alice has been going out and meeting with everyone and pulling together a group to come up with a set of recommendations. And the idea is that then we'll sit down with the bill sponsors and talk to them about, you know, any modifications that we'd like to see for 2024.
Yeah, and I know unlikely, and this probably won't be put in any bill that's going forward, but Kevin has joined us, but I love Kevin's idea of creating a license. So, users would have to take a training and, kind of whatever, pay for a fee, but then I could be like, oh, I'm licensed to consume psychedelics. And so that is something that I would love to see enacted. And are you guys joining us from California?
We are the Sacramento Capitol. We are waiting for Joe to testify. I don't tell you the exact time. You got to wait for them to get through the other issues. So we're just in the lead waiting. It should be any moment. So also, was there any problems opening this Zoom, or did it go smooth? Sorry that if I wasn't here to open in time, but it seems to have all worked.
Yeah, it worked. Yep. Now is
Okay.
this the Cluster Buster account that I used that? I believe I used that link in the monthly recurring thing.
Right. I think it is, which I think means someone who's got a Cluster Buster account has to open it, but somehow it didn't work that way. So where there's not a problem, we'll just be happy it worked.
Okay, great.
But we'll note for future selves, let's make sure that someone from Cluster Busters always around to help out.
Yep. Now
it's a little loud here, so I'm going to go on mute.
Okay. Yeah, I was just giving like a legislative update, but I think I covered for the most part, what happened, and I would love for you and Joe to tune in when he's available to give us an update from California. And Brittany, if you want to talk a little bit about the events things going forward, and the August 5th picnic, and I know we haven't settled a date for the COSM trip quite yet. Brittany, are you in a spot where you can talk?
No, I'm not, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. Well, I know August 5th near Rochester, and it's something that I'm going to put in the notes when I send those out. The Psychedelic Society of Western New York is hosting a picnic for people to gather in the area just to hang out. It's going to be from 12 to 5, I believe, and I don't know the exact location quite yet, but I'll follow up with that information in the email that I send out. And Brittany had started a visit to COSM field trip, so more like just another like social group thing. Which, if you haven't heard of, Alex Gray is a psychedelic artist that opened the Chapel of Sacred Mirrors, and they just finished construction on basically a temple to entheogens, and he's calling it, I'm blanking on the name, but it's something entheo something. But it's in Wappingers Falls, New York, which is about 45 minutes north of the city, about an hour and a half south of Albany here. And if you haven't been, it's absolutely phenomenal. I haven't seen the new space that they just opened, the museum temple, but it's incredibly beautiful, grounds and everything. I don't see Taylor on here.
Is there an event attached to that, or?
It's not a concrete event yet. I think it's an interest survey to see when it could be an event, but it's something that we're trying to get people, on a non-advocacy level, just to go down and hang out and do one of their full moon ceremonies or something like that down there. And then I also don't see Aaron on the call quite yet, but one of the other things that Aaron Ganuth and I talked about when he came up and visited is really just trying to get involved in the festival circuit space and advocate for psychedelic access there, and maybe host a few panels at some music festival kind of things. And there where there's more people who might be open to signing petitions and becoming a little bit more involved. So that's something that we're.
Rye Bread Festival is coming up at the Shodak Fairgrounds. We should maybe see if we can get a couple people.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
Or if anyone from this area would be interested in maybe canvassing.
Yeah, or even like if we could talk to them about getting a table, so that, that's
Canvassing. Anyway, we can
Yeah.
put it out with the notes.
cool. Would canvassing just be like walking around? Yeah, okay. Cool. Yeah.
So, is it Shodak?
Skodak.
Fairgrounds? It's the end of July 27th.
I thought
You said that, I thought.
I don't think Skodak.
Is it not?
I thought it was a little north, not, because Skodak is.
Scattercoke.
Scattercoke. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah. And the Rosenthal Mushroom Festival. Did we talk about that last meeting?
We talked about being there. About how it was.
Yeah. So that went really well, and we had a phenomenal panel. Allison Hoots, Dee Dee Goldpaw, Bill Brennan, Aaron Ganuth, and I talked about psilocybin research and access and what it would mean moving forward from all of their perspectives. And it was something that we recorded, the Rosenthal Theater recorded. And once I get the raw footage, we're going to edit together so that we can put that into a shareable link so that we can send it to the legislators as something that they can review. And I know Scott Bendette asked about Joe McKay's footage. And I know Joe was filmed by the Reconsider folks, and the Reconsider folks also have several other short videos. And Willow, you've been working with a couple other people to narrow their stories down. Is that correct?
One person, it was just one time. I forget the name. Probably takes too long.
Okay, yeah. So we need to get some more like New York people and then connect with the Reconsider folks to kind of film, the regular folks who have benefited from psychedelic use and how their access has helped them heal from the traumas and depressions and anxieties that they've experienced. So, I think that the more we can cultivate a library of media, the stronger impact that's going to make for people moving forward. So yeah, if you want to still offer your services, anyone that might want to narrow down or tell their story, that would be Fantastic. And then the psychedelic assisted therapies in group context. I've connected with Xavier from the Sanctuary for Independent Media and the professor from RPI who wanted to put this presentation together. So that is something that we're going to have an in-person event here, and maybe we'll tie it into one of these meetings so it'll be available via Zoom as well. That is still unsure, but maybe we can just make it one of the monthly meetings, and that could be like the meeting instead of, you know, this kind of stuff. So it'll be a more practical kind of action thing.
What's the deal with the professor from RPI? I haven't heard about before.
Yeah, so he reached out to me and asked if there was any interest, and apparently he teaches integrating psychedelic experiences in group therapy in some way, and he wanted to do a presentation to the community. So that's something that we're working on narrowing down, and so he wanted to just offer his services to, you know, showcase some of the possibilities available for group therapy.
That's awesome. I'd love to be connected too, see if you'd be interested in speaking with the New York City Bar Association.
Yeah, and one of the people that we met through the Rosenthal Theater, who came to the Rosenthal Theater, is a professor in Syracuse, and he also wanted to connect to talk about that. And then Didi Goldpaw, the therapist out of Woodstock, like 23 minutes ago, sent me an email connecting me to someone who is setting up, I probably shouldn't mention it if I don't have the accurate information, but like someone who is setting up basically a group therapy context and wants to, you know, connect in a couple different ways. So these opportunities are opening up as more and more people start to realize how impactful not only individual access is, but, you know, using it in a community setting and kind of creating relationships through the psychedelic space. Yeah. And so part of old business, I know, Colin, you dialed in. Can you give us a little bit of a PS 2023 from your perspective, if you're in a spot to chat?
Hey, you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hey guys, Colin Pugh from the Brooklyn Psychedelic Society here. Thanks for having me on the call. I was at PS 23. It was extremely quiet and boring and very little stimuli there.
I'm not sure you were at the same one. I've heard most other people.
I've had trouble remembering it. I think I fell asleep in the exhibition hall a few times. And no, I'm just kidding. It was Burning Man in Denver with name tags. There were the visual. I'll give you the visual. The convention center is 1 million square feet. And even though I've heard different reports of between like 10,000 to 14,000 people being there for PS 23, but even with 14,000 people, it seemed like we were only using half of this huge center. But yeah, there was like all these different lecture halls, and then there was an exhibition hall, all these different businesses, and then Dr. Bronner's did a deep space thing. That was kind of like arts and lights and cool group experience type stuff. It was very overstimulating, but I participated in the Global Psychedelic Society Summit on Tuesday and met fellow psychedelic society leaders around the country and the world even, and that was very impactful because with all the kind of glitz and glam of all the different mushroom companies and things like that, it felt good to kind of see your people and feel like there is this very strong community undercurrent to this industry that is being formed very rapidly. So that was heartwarming. Yeah, I honestly feel like I'm not the best person to share how it was because I only attended 2 talks. So I was running around a lot. But we at Brooklyn Psychedelic Society held a talk show called Between Two San Pedros, and we threw an after party called Communities of Medicine. And at both events, we shared our vision for community-based healing centers as psychedelic co-ops. And yeah, got some good attention there, met some new people. And all in all, it was a great experience. There's a lot of camaraderie there, and I think it went well. There was a protest at the very end.
Wanted to hear about that, 'cause I thought I heard a little bit about it.
I think you dropped. Oh no, yeah. Darn it.
Did other people hear about the protest?
Yeah,
Was it
I did. What-
An indigenous woman? who
Yeah,
protested?
yeah. And Robert, you were there. Do you want to, what talks or
Sure.
anything did you attend?
I attended a bunch of talks, you know, at a variety, everything from the opening ceremonies and stuff with a wide variety of luminaries speaking to some other more specific conferences discussing considerations for people working in various therapy modalities, whether it was ketamine or whether it was looking into working with psychedelics. I got to see Hamilton Morris speak, which was awesome, and discuss 90 years of tryptamine chemical research, which was really cool. It was really impressive. One of the things that really struck me with it was that it wasn't really like I expected it to be a lot of kind of your VC startup companies. There'd be a lot of them there, and those type of people, at least on the kind of on the expo floor, and they were really not very visible. There's a couple of companies there, but for the most part, it was really seemed more focused on the smaller groups and a lot of individual people connecting, which was really uplifting. There was it was I felt a real just sense of connection and community, and everybody kind of had a sense that they were experiencing something that was bigger than themselves, and which is really great. There was an awesome Flaming Lips show with Eric Andre before the Flaming Lips, and incredibly crazy, trippy lights, and that was a blast. There's a ton of art being put on in the throughout the space. It was it was a hell of a lot of fun, and like Colin said, that it's like 1 million square feet in there. It's the best advice I could give to anybody is wear beyond comfortable shoes there, because you end up walking like 10 miles a day between events. It's insane. But no, it was really great. It was one of the things that struck me was Rick Perry spoke, and the former governor of Texas speaking, shortly after Rick Doblin, and and he said, this is a cause that brings together, Republican Texas governor and Rick Doblin on the same stage. Really speaks to how powerful these medicines potentially are, and his focus is really looking at how it can help vets who are kind of left behind in treatment. And then after that, the governor of Colorado spoke, and I was really impressed with that too, that his commitment to psychedelic space in Colorado. And he also kind of said that he embraced cognitive liberty in a sense. And even said that he supported recreational use, which was, really amazing to hear coming from a governor of a state. So that was awesome. The protest at the end, I was only like 20 feet away from the people when it started. It was right when Rick Doblin was going to give his closing talk and end the event. Bunch of drums were banging, people yelling. Then there was a lot of confrontation back and forth, and then in the end, Rick Doblin invited the people onto the stage to speak, and they spoke for a couple of minutes each, and then he brought up all the volunteers on stage and who with him, and closed the event with that. The protest too ended with one of the protesters giving Rick a big hug at the end. So I felt that it was very positive all the way around. I'm just incredibly inspired and hopeful for the future.
Awesome. And I know Kevin and Joe were both there, and just from a mushroom perspective, Joe McKay was Paul Stamets walked by Joe, and Joe was not going to say anything, and Paul actually went over to him and was like, "Hey, I've heard about you, and for like Joe, as a I know how powerful Joe is as a speaker, but he was like, I had a real humbled moment when Paul Stamets came over. Was like, oh, I've heard about you. Thank you for your work. And I mean, like Joe right now is presenting to the California Senate in Sacramento, and he is doing such amazing stuff for this movement that is really what a incredible person he is to be connected to. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I ran into Joe on the expo floor out there. He is just he really is an amazing guy, and his message, and also too what he every time he's putting himself out there giving his recount of everything that happened, it's really you're bringing all those emotions back up, putting them out there, and I think it takes an incredible amount of strength, an incredible amount of courage, and we're really lucky to have Joe in the movement.
Yeah, and Kevin, I know he said that he did a lot of social connecting. I won't repeat all of the things that he said he engaged with, but it just sounds like he and Jana too were there. They just like really kind of made a lot of connections with people who are making a lot of waves in the space. So I wish he could have stayed in and regaled us with some of his tales, but it sounds like it was quite a party. Colin, are you reconnected? Did you want to finish what you were saying?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, I think Robert gave a much more thorough and better overview than I. Thank you, Robert. Yeah, all I was saying is we just pitched the co-op vision as well down there, and that got good reception. And I agree with Robert that it didn't feel overly capitalisty or takeover-y, and it felt really good just to see so many different faces and people. And yeah, I ran into Joe. I think we had the same hotel, and he seemed pretty ecstatic after he met Paul Stamets. I think I just caught him either coming back from or about to go on a electric scooter ride. That's how everyone was getting around. But yeah, it was very great overall. It was just maybe a little overstimulating for my personal taste, but yeah. And I saw Bob and Eileen down there too, and Kevin. That was awesome. So no more thoughts on my end other than wish you guys could have joined us.
Well, before I one of the things that like Aaron Ganuth and I were talking about is like this happened in Denver, which is a shining bastion for cultural change. But how do we bring something similar, and obviously not necessarily to that scale, but to the East Coast? So, and yes, New York has done so many things, but I feel like if we can do something where we host panels and talks nearer the Capitol here, we could actually make some bigger waves and invite some of the lawmakers to participate. And maybe not obviously this year, but next year, if we can get some people who want to fund a gathering like this, I feel like there is dollars for it, and put together a couple day thing. Like we need to start conceptualizing what that would look like, because if it's not next year, it'll be the year after, because I feel like we can do it. It is within our grasp.
I completely agree, and I would totally be down to collaborate on that, something like that.
Cool.
And Aaron and I have been having some really great conversations lately
I
as
have a
well.
question, for Colin and Robert, did you connect with any other advocacy groups like NYMHA that we ought to check in with from other states? I don't know,
Can you hear Corinne?
I personally did not, but yeah. How about you, Robert?
Oh, I think you're muted.
I didn't find any other groups that were kind of state focused or even kind of, so much advocacy focused. There's some other groups out there like the Psychedelic Nurses Association, or I think it's the Organization of Psychedelic Nurses. A few other groups like that, but not specifically a group that's targeting a state with the notion of trying to move ahead legislation. Which, this is New York. It's about as high profile as you can get. I think there should be a lot of interest with trying to, help our mission and move it along, by the broader, psychedelic kind of funding ecosystem that exists.
But I think that Robert just makes me think that we ought to reach out to that organization.
Yeah, well, anytime we can engage with the medical professions, that's what Scott Bendett suggested. The ACCA was the Addiction Care Center of Albany, and really, not for funding purposes, but just to get more people on board, because this was Scott's second visit. And I was naming like the Brooklyn Psychedelic Society and, Cluster Busters. And he's like, oh yeah, give me a few more organizations that I've never heard of, but like, if we can get some people who have already made splashes in passing legislation or just getting their voices heard, like, physicians, associations or pharmacists and nurses, I think that would also go a long way in building legitimacy. And I know that there is interest in all of those realms. It's just a matter of like who in those organizations would take the step to say that these medicines are beneficial and can be used to help people heal. That's the true trick, I guess, is getting people to destigmatize and disentangle the past misinformation.
One of the groups I'd say we might want to try to reach out for, I know at least the work I know that they're doing is largely Colorado focused, but the Healing Advocacy Fund, which is kind of Josh Capel from Vicente's involved with it, and a bunch of people around that kind of spot are working with. I'd be happy to reach out to them.
Awesome.
Also, I'm looking at something from the FDA that they are in a period of right now on draft guidance for clinical trials with psychedelic drugs, but all of the public comments and all the commenters will be public. We have summaries.
Oh, wow.
That would be worth just scanning. It says it'll probably be at the end of the summer, but that might be worth scanning just to see which pages are commenting.
Sure, or even we should go make our own comments as well to get, yeah. I don't know if you could hear online, Willow is on the FDA website now.
Yeah, there's a news release from June 23rd. I can send it to you.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I'll include that in the minutes as well, but it, basically there have a public comment period open on psychedelic use, is that?
Clinical trials.
Clinical trials with psychedelic, yeah. Cool. And then one other thing, like for, between this period of before the next legislative statewide session opens up, Aaron mentioned trying to push local referendums again. And like, he mentioned Kingston, and I know, maybe even like, who's the Skodak town board? I think anyone that has is a local municipality, we can share that draft that we proposed to Troy, and even just try to be like, oh, like all these different municipalities, let's see if we can actually get people on board with making some local change. And like they're doing in Massachusetts, the Bay Staters, they've gotten, I think, 5 different municipalities, 5 different cities to pass a referendum. We can start doing that here in New York too, because the town boards and city boards and committees are still active, throughout the year. They don't operate on a state the state calendar, and so that's something too that we can continue the momentum with.
I don't think Del Mar, New York's quite ready yet, but I'll try.
Yeah.
One of the things that we had thought to do when more people were coming to these meetings, we should talk about how to boost that again, is having a subgroup work on local resolutions. I do have a toolkit for how to pass a local resolution that people could adapt and use. Aaron's got the model language. I mean, it would be ready to go once we have people signing up to do it.
Right.
It's such a good idea.
Cool. Well, and I feel like once we finish the hurdle that we had with the organization, and we do like a broader press release kind of thing to say, hey, we're looking for people across New York to approach their local leaders to, discuss psychedelic use, and I think that would be a good ask in a release kind of thing. Yeah, awesome. Well,
Can we go back to the subcommittees that we have, the graphics and marketing? Taylor's not on the call, right?
Taylor is not on the call.
So I guess I just want to throw out there that we really, once we do get these problems resolved, we really need to start to focus on building up some of these subcommittees, because it's hard to do anything when we're not doing the graphics and the marketing, which then we could start to fundraise, which then would give us money to register to table at events. So I feel like there's a ton of energy to do stuff, but without having fixed the problems and then coming up with some swag, and it's hard to do. But I think we need to start asking for someone to lead the IT committee, because once we're ready to launch with a press event, we're going to need some communications people to start making phone calls. So
Sure.
I don't know. I just wanted to put out there again that we're going to need people to take over some of these functions.
Yeah. So tell your friends. If everybody on this call right now tells one more person to come to our next meeting, which will be Tuesday, August 15th, then we can start, building more momentum.
I also had another question, whether people, I think we had more attendance when we had guest speakers. And I'm wondering if, I've been trying to tee up somebody to talk about
The addiction stuff.
addiction
Yeah.
stuff. She's a little nervous about doing it. I'm just wondering, what do people want to hear? And are there ideas that people have for guest speakers? We should really line somebody up for August 15th and then blast it out and see if we can get more people to follow next time.
Well, I know Colin spoke a little bit at one of the meetings when he was here in person. I would love to hear a broader, fleshed out concept, presentation. And I think that community use is something that I feel like more people are interested in, like just from a gathering perspective. So that, I mean, not that, Colin, I'm putting you on the spot, but like for an August 15th thing, I mean, that's, and I do want to move forward with the psychedelic therapy and group context, and maybe we can work that into another meeting. But I like that idea.
Yeah, but if folks have ideas for guest speakers, I guess let us know, and we'll try to book them for an upcoming meeting.
Yeah. So Colin, would you be interested in doing like a 20-minute kind of presentation on what it would mean to have a psychedelic co-op at some point?
Happily, count me in.
Awesome. Great. Cool. Well,
Just let me know.
if no one else has anything, that's pretty much all I had on the agenda. And I know I was hoping Kevin and Joe could join us because they're, I mean, like I said, they're literally in Sacramento presenting right now. They were super excited. Kevin was and Joe were moving hotels yesterday during the legislative committee meeting, and they're certainly at a juncture where if they could get California to move, that would be incredible, absolutely incredible. Yeah, well, thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for hosting, guys. Good to see you all.
All right, bye.
Hey, Avery, did you say are you meeting afterwards with some sort of a thing officially, or doing something with the committee, or were you having a meeting, did you say?
I mean,
Thank you. Good night.
yeah, good night. Here, let me end the recording here, Robert.
Okay.